Frustration. Yes, frustration. It will happen. And you as a composer better know how to deal with it, or better yet, just avoid it altogether. I decided instead of just doing one long video, I'm gonna break this subject up into an entire series just based off of frustration for a film composer. So we're gonna go ahead and begin with topic number 1. A few ways that a composer will most likely get frustrated. Your computer. Your computer might possibly be your biggest source of frustration. Your computer crashing is at the high end of things to get you frustrated. So if your computer's not powerful enough or fast enough or don't have enough memory or RAM or whatever, it's going to crash. More specifically, your DAW is going to have a bunch of system overloads and crash, especially in the middle of sessions. And nothing is more frustrating than being in the middle of a session and your DAW crashing or freezing or your computer crashing or just plain old turning off. So when you're working in your DAW and you're in the middle of a recording session, you keep getting system overload messages, and I'm speaking from the perspective of using Logic, but I'll assume that all the other DAWs have the same issue. So your error message, if you're not using Logic, your error message might not say the same thing as the one in Logic, but it's something similar, I'm sure. So either way, if your computer doesn't have enough processing power, or you have your samples on the same hard drive as your computer, you're not using external hard drives, then more than likely you're going to be experiencing a bunch of system overload, and your DAW is going to be crashing constantly. And your DAW, if it doesn't crash, if it doesn't freeze, a bunch of other funky things will happen. And this is the part that gets me extremely frustrated still. If it's not crashing, then it's just going to be operating funky. Seriously? It'll be staticky. The files won't load correctly, or the plugins won't load correctly, the samples. It'll be glitchy. It'll just have all kind of stuff going on with it. Some samples won't load even though the signal is there, or it'll freeze up. If you're using a Mac, you'll get the circle of death. All of that stuff. I don't even know if there's a word for it, but when you experience it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And that's all because of the processing speed, or your computer trying to process sends and receives all on one hard drive. That's why I recommend you getting external hard drives. So depending on what type of computer you have and how much power it has, that can make things extremely frustrating for a film composer. So you need to get that fixed straight away, because handling that will save you a whole heap. That's right, a whole heap of frustration. Come on! Come on! What the? I don't know how many times I've hurt my hand. You probably gonna want to get a little pillow or something to sit on your desk, your workstation, to where you, whatever hand you use to pound stuff with to exhibit your frustration, you need to put the pillow where that hand's gonna be, because at some point in time you're gonna pound that desk. Hopefully you won't put a hole in your wall, but it's been done. You're gonna hit something. You're gonna take that frustration out on something, and it's best to not hurt your hand. Take it from me. So I don't know how many times I've pounded my desk, pounded my workstation due to frustration because of the daggone computer. Or should I say, because of me not taking care of the computer and getting the type of computer that I need to get or needed to get, or doing whatever was needed to be done to stop the system from crashing, to stop my DAW from crashing, to stop the system overloads. So get that computer situation taken care of, whatever your situation is, whether it's not having enough processing power, whether it's not having external hard drive, so you got to have everything on one hard drive, whether it's using an older computer on an older operating system. And that's another thing, that operating on an older system can affect how your samples play in your DAW. And conversely, sometimes it's not good to upgrade to a newer operating system because you might not be sure if everything is going to work properly. I know it's 2019, and common sense would tell you that in this day and age, if they make a new operating system, then every app or every software should function properly in accordance to that new operating system. But that's not, as anyone who has operated on computers knows, that's not the case. So you gotta be sure that when you upgrade to a new operating system, that your DAW is gonna function properly. And never do it in the middle of a project. Never upgrade your operating system in the middle of you working on a project. You have to do it when you have absolutely nothing going on, because if it doesn't work right, it's gonna mess you all up, and that leads to a whole nother level of frustration, because now you're in the middle of a project that you can't work on because your operating system is crappy. So get that computer situation straight. I'm not the tech guy to give you all the kind of specs and things like that of what you should have. All I know is that you need to have as fast a processor, as much RAM as you can possibly have, for at least what you can afford to get. That will make your system run smoothly. Also, knowing your DAW, knowing how to work your DAW properly, or should I say not knowing how to work your DAW properly, will make you frustrated as well. So a lot of these DAWs, and for those of you who may be watching for the first time, DAW is Digital Audio Workstation. That's the software that you use to do your writing. So these DAWs will have instruction manuals where they'll go through all the detail, all the basics and extensive things you'll need to know to operate your DAW correctly. So I recommend, to save you a lot of frustration, read those instruction manuals front to back, and don't act like you know it all before you read the manuals. Even if you have some experience with working on these DAWs and music software, I suggest you go ahead and read the manual, because if you don't, you'll find yourself only referring back to the manual in the middle of sessions later on down the line. So save yourself that trouble, save yourself the frustration of not knowing where something is or not knowing how to do something particular. Just go ahead and from the start, read the manual, read the instructions, so you can know all the nooks and crannies. You'll learn things that you never even knew about if you just take the time to sit down and physically read the manual. And I know some people are hands-on, and that's fine. I'm hands-on as well. But I've learned you can't just be hands-on with this kind of technical stuff. If you want to be able to operate your DAW perfectly, then you need to do the research on it. And that means physically reading. You can go online, do research, for your specific DAW, watch videos and things like, I don't do tutorial videos, this is informational videos, but there's a bunch of tutorial videos out there on Logic, Pro Tools, and things of that nature. So go ahead, watch the videos, read the instruction manuals, but you need to be as knowledgeable as you can on your DAW. So that way you're not in the middle of a session having to stop to go read the manual or find a part in the manual where it talks about doing a thing that you don't know how to do right now. And it's embarrassing if you have to do that when you have clients over in the middle of a session. That's not really professional. That's gonna force you to go over everything, every nook and cranny of that DAW, step by step. So it's important that you read the manual and any other literature you can, so that you can, know all the ins and outs, and you'll also learn a bunch of things that you were never aware of in reading the literature. So I don't like to get all technical with, music making. That takes the fun out of it for me. In fact, one of my frustrations is not having my own personal engineer to do all of that stuff for me. If it in a dream fantasy world of mine, I would never have to install anything. I would never have to fix a computer problem or a software problem. I would never have to worry about mixing, or at least setting up a mix, setting up the live instruments, setting up the engineering, all things engineering. If it were up to me, I would never have to do it, because when you spend time doing all of that stuff, that takes away your creating time, and you only got but so much creating time in a day. To minimize the time you'll be struggling trying to figure stuff out, you need to read up on the manual and instructions first, learn as much as you can first, then go and start working on the software. That way you won't have to be stopping and going back to you'll still have to go back to the manual, probably forever, unless you don't do anything else but learn your DAW. You don't work, you don't go to school, you don't create music, nothing. Your focus is just learning how to work this DAW. That might be you. If that's not you, then you need to just learn how to work the DAW enough to where you don't have to really keep going back to the manual. That's gonna save you a whole lot of frustration, especially if you think you know enough, and then you have clients over, or you have musicians over, and you're trying to do a session, and something happens that you don't know how to fix, and then you got to go find in a manual in front of them. How professional does that look, right? You never want to have to stop to go find something that you should have known from the get-go had you just read the manual. Just from the gate. Start out, stop the video right now, pull out the manual to your DAW, and start reading it from front to back. Same thing goes for your sample libraries. I know the sample library I use, East West Orchestra, they have not necessarily instructions, but they have literature on each sample library, the details of it, the instruments, the intimate details of the instruments, origin and ranges, and all things like that. Things that it would be nice to know. You might not necessarily have to know everything that they put in there, but there's some things that they put in the libraries that are nice to know, that information that you can use that'll help you in your sessions. But if you don't read that literature, there's some things in there that you'll never know that can probably potentially make your life a whole lot easier. All you got to do is read. They make that stuff for a reason. You might as well read it and get some knowledge. Anything that can help your job. The whole point is to make life easier. The whole point is to compose smarter, not harder. Believe me, the frustration lies with spending so much time fixing problems and having to stop creating. That's where the frustration lies. That's what's going to get you. So read the literature for your DAW and your sample library. Learn all you can learn about those two things, those two aspects, and it'll make your composing life a whole heck of a lot easier.